I remember the sound of my mother's laughter better than I remember the sound of my own voice. Some days, I wonder if I remember it wrong. Too warm, too golden, too perfect to be real. But it plays in my head when the house is too quiet, like it's echoing off walls that don't want to forget. Her laugh used to fill every corner of this place, tangled in the curtains, soaked into the worn fabric of the couch, dancing off the chipped edges of the kitchen counter. Now it's gone, and nothing echoes anymore. 3 years ago, she went to bed with a soft smile and never woke up. Just like that. No warning, no drama, just a light switching off in the dark. My father said it was peaceful. I never believed that. Dying in the middle of your life isn't peaceful. It's cruel. It's a robbery. After she passed, everything changed. Not with explosions, not even with tears. Just a slow, unrelenting fade. My father stopped playing his favorite records. He stopped cooking real dinners and started heating up freezer meals in silence. He stopped laughing. And then he stopped looking at me like he used to, like I was the only piece of her he had left. Instead, he looked through me like I was too painful to hold on to, like a photograph that hurts more than it heals. I didn't cry in front of him. Not once. I cried in the laundry room, pressing my face into a stack of towels that still smelled like her lavender detergent. I cried on the floor of my bedroom closet. I cried into the neck of her old winter coat until I could barely breathe. But in front of him, I was solid. I was steady, because someone had to be. Then came Marissa. I first heard her name on a Tuesday night around 11 p.m. I'd gone downstairs for a glass of water, bare feet cold on the kitchen tile. I was halfway down the hallway when I heard him, laughing, a sound so foreign it froze me in place. Not a chuckle, a real laugh, like something had cracked open in his chest and let out a little light. I peeked around the corner. There he was, lying on the couch in the dark, the glow of his phone lighting up his face. His eyes were soft in a way I hadn't seen in years. He didn't see me. He was too caught up in whoever was on the other end of the screen. The next morning, I asked who it was. He shrugged. Just a friend. That friend called every night after that, sometimes twice a night. Her voice drifted out from his office with a musical lilt, too smooth, too rehearsed. She started sending packages. A tie, a framed photo of her on a beach, a bottle of cologne with a handwritten note for my Tom. Can't wait to breathe you in. I wanted to puke, but I didn't say anything. Because what do you say to a man who's been walking through a fog for 3 years and finally find a light? Even if that light feels too bright, too fast, too artificial? Then came the announcement. Over spaghetti, of all things. He always makes spaghetti when he has something difficult to say. It was Mom's recipe, though his version always tasted like cardboard. We were halfway through the meal when he cleared his throat and looked at his plate like it held answers. I asked Marissa to marry me, he said. I stared at him. My fork slipped from my hand and clattered against the plate. It was the only sound in the room. You haven't even met her, I said, my voice sounding too small in my ears. He smiled, sheepish like a teenager. We video called every day. I know her. You'll love her. I nodded because I didn't know what else to do. Because screaming wouldn't bring Mom back. And crying wouldn't change his mind. But inside, something split. Quietly. A hairline fracture right down the middle of me. 2 weeks later, Marissa arrived. She pulled into our driveway in a white Lexus that sparkled like it had never touched dust. When she stepped out, it was like the house physically flinched. Her heels clacked on the pavement. Her perfume hit me before her words did. Sharp, floral, invasive. She was all smiles, red lipstick, perfectly curled hair. She wore a cream blazer like she was going to a brunch, not moving into a home where a ghost still lived in every room. She hugged me. Her arms were stiff, cold. Her hands didn't press against my back. They hovered. It's so lovely to finally meet you, sweetheart, she said. Sweetheart. The word burned. That night, I lay awake in my room, listening to the sound of her voice through the floor. Too loud. Too fake. Laughing too hard. She laughed differently when my father wasn't around. Lower, lazier, bored. Over the next few days, she began rearranging the house. Subtle at first. Throw pillows replaced. New candles on the mantel. A decorative tray on the coffee table. Then not so subtle. Mom's teacup collection disappeared from the shelf. When I asked where it was, Marissa said she boxed it for safekeeping. Her Afghan. Donated. It was just too worn, Marissa had said, with a shrug that made me want to throw something. The record player? Packed away. Too vintage. I tried to talk to Dad. I told him I missed how things were. He touched my hand and said, "We have to move forward, Em. She makes me feel like I can breathe again." I wanted to scream, and "I make you feel like you're drowning?" But I didn't say it. I nodded again, swallowing pieces of myself every time I did. Then came the picture. There was a photo of Mom and me on the hallway wall. I was 10. She was holding me at the beach, wind in our hair, her eyes shining. I walked past it every morning before school. I said goodnight to it every night. And one day it was gone. I stood frozen in the hallway, staring at the blank spot on the wall like it had been amputated. "Where's the picture?" I asked. Marissa didn't look up from her phone. "Which one?" "You know which one." "Oh," she said. "I thought it was time for a fresh start. We don't need the past haunting us, right?" I didn't respond. I went into the garage, dug through every box until I found it, face down beneath holiday decorations. The glass was cracked. I carried it back to my room like a body. That night, I sat on the floor with it in my lap and cried so hard I couldn't breathe. I pressed my forehead against the frame and whispered, "I miss you. Please come back. I don't know how to do this." She didn't come back. A week later, my father left on a short work trip. Just 3 days. And that's what happened. Marissa made dinner. Salmon. With wine. She set 2 plates. Not 3. "Sit," she said, with a smile too tight around the edges. "We need to talk." I sat, because I still had that instinct to be polite, to pretend. "I think it's time you start thinking about your future," she said, slicing her salmon with precision. "You're almost 18. A young woman. College is coming. It's important to find independence." I stared at her, heart pounding. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying it might be time to consider moving out." She sipped her wine, unbothered. "This is my home," I said. She smiled gently. "Was, sweetheart." I didn't finish my dinner. I left, quietly, just like Mom did. When Dad returned, I told him everything. He looked shocked, then sad, then tired. "She didn't mean it like that," he said. "She's just adjusting. This isn't easy for her either." "It's not easy for me," I said. "She's erasing Mom. She's erasing me." He looked away. "Maybe it is time to start thinking about the next chapter of your life." I stared at him, and in that moment I knew I'd lost him. Not to death, but to someone who promised him a future without shadows. Even if that meant cutting out everything that made him who he was. Even if that meant cutting out me. I wasn't kicked out. I was quietly erased. And the worst part? He held the door open while it happened. The silence in the house was no longer peaceful. It had become a weight pressing on my chest, every corner of every room filled with things that used to belong to someone else. Now scrubbed clean, polished, bleached into unfamiliarity. My home had become a showroom for a life I didn't recognize. A life I hadn't been invited into. And I was still living in it. Barely. I stopped speaking unless I had to. Words didn't seem to mean anything anymore, not to my father, not to Marissa, not even to myself. I would open my mouth and nothing felt worth saying. Nothing would change. I would just be looked at with that same tired look like I was a broken radio playing old static. Something they couldn't fix, so they chose to tune me out. I began to feel translucent, like I wasn't really here. My room was the only place untouched, a sanctuary locked from the inside. I'd started dragging furniture in front of the door at night, even though I knew no one was coming in. It wasn't about safety. It was about control, about claiming something in a world where everything else had been claimed for me. I'd stare at the ceiling for hours, headphones on, music turned up so loud I couldn't hear my thoughts. But the thoughts came anyway, slipping under the noise, like water through cracks in a dam. What if I left? Would he even notice? Would he owe me back? There were days when I wanted to scream at him, shake him, make him see me. But I didn't, because I knew he wouldn't see me. Not really. He was somewhere else now, wherever Marissa had taken him, wherever she lived in his head, wrapped around his memories like ivy strangling old brick. I tried to leave the house less and less. School was a blur. I moved through the halls like a ghost, drifting past people I used to laugh with. I didn't know how to explain what was happening. What would I say? My father married a woman he's never met, and now she wants me gone. It sounded insane. But that was the problem. It wasn't insane. It was my life. One afternoon, I came home and found Marissa in the living room, rearranging photo frames that didn't belong to her. She was humming like she was content, like she belonged here, like this had always been her life, not something she had wedged herself into like a snake slipping through a crack in the wall. She didn't notice me at first. Then she turned and smiled. "You're home early," she said. I didn't answer. She walked toward me, heels clicking against the hardwood like gunshots. "You know, I've been thinking about that little college upstate. What's it called?" Dumbly. I stared at her. "They have early admissions. It could be a great fresh start for you." A fresh start. That phrase again. She used it like perfume to cover something rotting underneath. "I'm not leaving," I said quietly. She tilted her head, mock confusion on her face. "This house isn't healthy for you anymore, Emily. You need a new environment, one where you can thrive, not one full of grief." My fists clenched. This house is the last place I have of her. Marissa's expression flickered. She stepped closer, her voice soft. "I'm not the enemy, sweetheart. Yes, you are, I thought. You just dressed like an ally." I walked past her without another word, but her voice followed me like a net. "You know, your father and I have been talking. He agrees this might be the best thing for everyone." I stopped, my back to her. The words weren't a suggestion anymore. They were a decision. In the quiet of my room that night, I stared at the ceiling and realized something brutal. It wasn't just Marissa who didn't want me here. It was my own father. Maybe not consciously, maybe not with cruelty, but one didn't have to come with anger. Sometimes it came with neglect, with silence, with cowardice. The next day, I found an envelope on my pillow. Inside was a brochure for Dunley College and a note in my father's handwriting. "Just think about it, Em. I love you. Dad." I didn't cry. I didn't rip it up. I just stared at it for hours, the paper trembling in my hands like it had a heartbeat of its own. That night, I packed a bag. Not everything, just enough to leave, just enough to see if I could disappear. I didn't tell anyone. I left a note on my desk. "You didn't ask me to leave, but you made it impossible to stay." I walked out of the house at 2:14 a.m., the same time my mom used to check on me when I was sick. The air was cold, sharp, honest. I didn't know where I was going. I just knew I couldn't keep staying in a place where love used to live, and now only polite strangers remained. I didn't get far that night. I walked for hours, through neighborhoods I only knew from car windows, past silent houses with warm lights flickering in kitchens I'd never see the inside of. The streets felt unreal at night, too still, like the world was holding its breath, waiting for me to turn around and go home. But I didn't. My legs were shaking by 4 a.m., and my phone was down to 5%. I found a bench in front of a closed diner and sat there, hugging my backpack to my chest like a shield. I watched a delivery truck unload boxes. I watched a cat dart under a car. I watched the stars fade out, one by one, as morning bled slowly across the sky. And then the weight hit me. Not just the exhaustion, not just the cold, but the grief, thick and ugly and raw. I had nowhere to go. I had no plan, just a single instinct: survive this. Somehow, I thought of calling someone. But who? My mom's sister lived 3 states away. We'd spoken 3 times in the past year. My friends from school had drifted the way teenagers do, slowly, unintentionally. People get scared of pain that sticks to you like secondhand smoke. It makes them uncomfortable, so they leave. I ended up at the library when it opened. It was warm, quiet, anonymous. I sat in the back near the windows, curled up in a chair with my hoodie pulled over my head, pretending to read. But I wasn't reading. I was staring out at the trees, wondering if they ever felt out of place where they were rooted. By noon, the adrenaline had worn off. My stomach hurt. My head buzzed. I hadn't eaten since the night before. I checked my phone. 1%. No messages. No missed calls. That hit harder than I expected. He hadn't even noticed I was gone. Or worse, he had, and still didn't reach out. I borrowed a library computer and searched for shelters. Youth outreach programs. Anything. There were places, but most required applications. Interviews. Proof. I didn't even have my social security card on me. I didn't want to be a burden. I just wanted to exist somewhere that didn't want to erase me. I ended up messaging the only person I could think of who might actually answer, Riley. We hadn't talked in months, not since things fell apart junior year. We were best friends once, the kind of friends who knew each other's secrets before they were even spoken. But time, boys, grief, it all created space. Still, I hoped that part of her would still remember me, still care. I typed fast before I could overthink it. Hey, I know it's been a while. I really need somewhere to crash. Just for a night or two. Please. The reply came 5 minutes later. Come over. Back door's unlocked. Relief hit me so hard, I almost cried right there at the computer desk. Riley lived in a blue house with a crooked porch and a yellow dog who barked like a demon. Her parents were always working or sleeping or fighting, so no one asked questions when I showed up with my bag and a face that probably looked like I'd crawled through a storm. She hugged me at the door. No questions, no pressure, just warmth. It almost broke me. She didn't say much that night, just made popcorn and turned on old Disney movies like we used to. We didn't even watch them. We just let the noise fill the spaces we didn't know how to fill with words anymore. Around midnight, she looked at me and said, "You can stay as long as you need." I nodded. My throat felt like it had a stone in it. "You want to talk about it?" she asked. I shook my head. She didn't push. She just sat with me in silence, two girls trying to find pieces of their old friendship among the rubble of everything life had pulled apart. Days passed. Riley's house became a kind of purgatory. Not home, but not the street either. I helped around the house, did dishes, walked the dog, tried not to be in the way. Her parents barely noticed me. I stayed in Riley's room, curled up on a mattress on the floor. Every morning, I woke up to the ceiling fan spinning slowly above me, like a clock ticking away borrowed time. I still hadn't heard from my dad. A week went by. Then, out of nowhere, a message. "Where are you?" That's all he wrote. "No, are you okay?" "No, I'm sorry." "No, come home." Just 3 words that sounded more like an accusation than concern. I didn't reply. Another day passed. Then another message. "We need to talk. Please." I stared at the screen for a long time. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, but I couldn't bring myself to answer. I didn't know what I'd say. I didn't trust what I might feel if I heard his voice. I was afraid of what it might not feel like. The next morning, I woke to Riley nudging me gently. "There's someone at the door," she said. My stomach dropped. I came out slowly, heart thudding. It was him, my father, standing in Riley's doorway, holding his car keys in one hand and something else in the other, my old teddy bear. The one my mom gave me when I was 5. I froze. "I didn't come to drag you home," he said quietly. I needed to see you. Make sure you're okay." I didn't speak. He looked older than I remembered, or maybe just more tired. His eyes had that hollow look I hadn't seen since the funeral. "I messed up," he said. "I should have protected you. I let things get away from me." Still, I said nothing. He swallowed hard. "Marissa's gone." That made my chest jolt. She left yesterday. Took her things. Said she wasn't built for this kind of life. He paused, looked down at the bear in his hands. She said I was holding on to ghosts. That I was weak. Maybe I was. Maybe I am. But losing your mother broke something in me, and I think I was trying to fix it with the wrong glue. The silence between us was sharp. "I don't expect you to forgive me," he said. "But if you ever want to come home, it's still your home, Em. Always." He handed me the bear. I took it slowly. The fabric was worn and smelled faintly of the attic. Then he turned and walked to the car. He didn't look back. And somehow, that made it worse, because it meant he was leaving the choice up to me. For the first time in months, I felt like I was standing on the edge of something real. Not a cliff, not exactly, but a crossroads. And whichever way I walked, I couldn't go back. I didn't go back right away. Even after he left, after the door shut and the sound of his car faded down the street, I sat on Riley's couch with the bear in my lap, feeling like someone had cracked my ribs open and left the wind to howl through the space inside. He said it was still my home. That it was always mine. But I didn't believe him. Not yet. That's the thing about wounds. You can't just walk in with a bandage and expect them to stop bleeding. You have to acknowledge the depth first. You have to look at the damage and say, "I see it. I caused it. I'll stay here until it stops hurting." He didn't say that. He brought my bear. He brought silence. Riley didn't ask what happened. She just sat beside me, her shoulder brushing mine like a quiet reminder that I wasn't entirely alone in the world, that someone still saw me. That night, I dreamed of my mom. We were in the old kitchen, sunlight slanting across the tiles like gold silk. She was humming to herself, stirring something on the stove, and I was 10 again, barefoot, holding a drawing I'd made for her. She turned to me and smiled like she used to, wide and warm, the kind of smile that made the world feel safe. But when I tried to hand her the drawing, she faded. Like smoke, like fog caught in sunlight. I was left standing in an empty kitchen, the pot on the stove boiling over, the silence screaming. I woke up with tears on my face. The next morning, I walked. No destination, just movement. Through old streets and new neighborhoods. Past places that used to mean something and now felt hollow. I didn't realize where I was going until I stopped in front of our house. My house, or what used to be. The front yard was neater than I remembered. No weeds, no wild ivy curling up the steps. Marissa had liked order. Her fingerprints were still everywhere, even in absence. I stood at the bottom of the steps, hands shaking. Then I walked up and rang the bell. No answer. I used my old key. It still worked. Inside, the air smelled different. Less perfume, more dust. The living room was stripped down. No candles, no throw pillows. Just furniture and silence. Like someone had started packing and changed their mind halfway through. I walked slowly, like I was afraid the floor might collapse under me. Each step a memory, each shadow a ghost. The kitchen looked untouched. My heart caught in my throat when I saw the fridge. The same magnets. The same faded photo of me and Mom at the lake. Somehow, Marissa hadn't taken that down. I stood in the doorway for a long time. Then I heard footsteps. He appeared in the hallway, hair mussed, shirt wrinkled like he hadn't slept in days. We stared at each other, father and daughter, two broken halves of something neither of us knew how to fix. "You came," he said. I nodded. He looked like he wanted to say more, but didn't. Instead, he stepped aside. I moved past him and sat at the kitchen table. The same table where we used to eat pancakes on Sundays. He sat across from me, slowly, like he was afraid he'd scare me off if he moved too fast. We sat in silence for what felt like hours. Then he spoke. She was angry. Marissa said I didn't know how to move on, that I was drowning in memory. I think she wanted me to be someone else. I said nothing. He rubbed his face. But I already changed. After your mom died, I stopped being me. I stopped being your dad. I don't know what I became. Just a man trying to outrun his own house. The words sat between us, fragile and raw. I didn't mean to disappear on you, he said. I thought if I kept moving forward, I could pull you with me. But I left you behind. My throat tightened. You let her try to erase Mom. He looked down, ashamed. I did. Tears prickled behind my eyes. She told me to leave. I whispered. And you didn't stop her. He nodded slowly. I should have. I should have thrown her out the moment she made you feel like you didn't belong. Silence again. But something had shifted. He reached across the table and placed a hand over mine. Careful, tentative. I don't want to be someone you survive, he said. I want to be someone who shows up. Every day, even when it hurts. A tear slipped down my cheek. I don't know if I can trust you. I know. I pulled my hand away gently. Not in anger. Just because I needed space. I stood and walked into the living room, letting the memories wash over me like rain. Mom's laughter echoing in the walls, the warmth of Christmas lights, the creak of the couch when we all fell asleep watching movies. I sat down on the rug. He sat next to me. No words, just presence. That night, I stayed in my room for the first time in weeks. It felt different. Not safe, exactly, but mine. I pulled open drawers, smelled old clothes, held onto the teddy bear like a child and a survivor all at once. I didn't unpack. I didn't say I was staying, but I didn't leave either. Sometimes healing isn't a decision. It's a pause, a breath, a tiny shift toward maybe. I stayed, not because I forgave him, not because everything was okay, but because something in me softened when I saw how empty the house felt without the anger, without her, and because even through all the cracks, I still needed to believe that maybe the person who raised me could still come back from wherever he went. The first few days, we danced around each other like strangers pretending to be family. He cooked breakfast. I stayed upstairs. He knocked on my door when he left for work, said, "I'll be home by 6, like those simple words could rebuild something. I said okay once. Progress. Each day, I ventured further into the house. Not physically, but emotionally. I touched old picture frames, watched dust float through sunbeams like memories too heavy to land. I stood in Mom's closet once, inhaling the ghost of her perfume still clinging to one of her scarves. I cried in the dark, quietly, so he wouldn't hear. On a Wednesday afternoon, I came home to find groceries on the kitchen counter. My favorite cereal, the exact kind of peanut butter I used to hoard, even strawberry jam from the farmer's market downtown. I stared at them for a long time. He remembered. That night, we ate dinner together for the first time since I came back. It was awkward. He tried to talk about work. I gave monosyllabic replies. He asked if I'd thought about finishing school, and I shrugged. But beneath the words, I felt something small begin to knit itself between us again. A thread, a whisper. We didn't say what needed to be said. Not yet, but we stayed at the table after the plates were cleared. And sometimes silence is a kind of forgiveness, too. The next day, I found a box in the garage. It wasn't labeled, but I knew it the second I saw it. The way dust hadn't settled on it like the others, the way it sat too neatly, too deliberately like it was waiting to be found. Inside were letters. Dozens of them. Old paper, frayed edges. My mother's handwriting. My breath caught. At first, I thought maybe they were notes she'd left for me or for him. Memories he couldn't bear to throw away. But as I read, I felt the floor shift beneath me. These weren't letters she gave him. They were letters he never sent. To someone else. Every one of them was addressed to a woman named Julia. The first was dated 6 months after Mom's diagnosis. The second, 3 weeks before she died. The third, 2 months after. And they didn't stop. All this time, I thought he was grieving in silence. That he had drowned himself in sorrow too deep to swim through. But these letters, they were confessions. Intimate, raw, full of longing. He hadn't just broken after Mom died. He had already been breaking while she was still here, while I was still clinging to hope like a child clutching a balloon. I sat there in the cold garage, paper trembling in my hands, heart splitting in slow, terrible motion. Each word undid something I'd been holding together with denial. "I miss the way you say my name," one letter read. "She's slipping away, and I'm already halfway gone. I don't know who that makes me." Another, "Emily doesn't know. She can't. Not now. Not ever." My name, written like a secret, written like a burden. I wanted to scream, to tear the pages apart, to set the whole box on fire and watch the truth burn. But I didn't. Instead, I took the top letter and walked back inside. He was in the living room, watching a rerun of some sitcom, pretending life could still be simple. I stood in front of him, shaking. He looked up, confused, until he saw the envelope. The color drained from his face. "Where did you get that?" he asked, his voice a crack in a quiet room. "Garage," I said. My throat felt like glass. "Who is she?" He opened his mouth, closed it, tried again. "You were writing love letters while Mom was dying," I said coldly. "You lied. You let me believe you were broken when you were just gone. You already left us." "It wasn't like that," he said quickly. "Emily, please. Don't." My voice cracked. "Don't tell me you did it out of pain. Don't you dare try to make this noble." "I was lost," he said, standing now, desperate. "I didn't know how to handle any of it. Your mom, she was strong. Too strong sometimes. She shut me out. She didn't want me to see her like that. And I needed something. Someone. She was dying." I shouted. "She was holding everything together, and you were writing someone else about how sad you were that she wasn't enough anymore." "I never touched her," he said quickly. "It was emotional. It was just letters. Just letters." I shook my head. "You poured your soul into someone else. You abandoned us in silence. And then you brought Marissa into our house like you were trying to erase everything." Tears filled his eyes. I didn't know what else to do. "You could have been my dad," I whispered. "That would have been enough." The silence that followed was unbearable. I dropped the letter onto the floor and walked upstairs. I didn't slam the door. I didn't cry. I just sat on the bed in my old room and stared at the walls like they might tell me who I was now. The next few days passed in ice. He didn't knock. I didn't speak. I thought about leaving again. about packing my things and disappearing. But something inside me refused. Maybe because I needed answers. Maybe because I needed him to see what he'd done. Maybe because some part of me still stupidly hoped we weren't past saving. On the 5th day, he left an envelope outside my door. No name, no explanation. Inside were 2 things, a letter in his handwriting and a photo of me as a baby in my mom's arms. She was smiling at him in the picture. He was looking at us like we were the whole world. The letter was short. I betrayed her. And you. Not just in letters, but in all the ways I disappeared when you needed me most. I can't take that back. But I'm still your father. I will always love you, even if you never forgive me, even if you never speak to me again. Dad, I didn't know what forgiveness looked like, but I knew what pain did when you let it rot inside you. It turned into someone else. Someone bitter. Someone hollow. I didn't want to be hollow anymore. I didn't forgive him, but I didn't leave either. And maybe that, just staying, was the beginning of something new. Not peace. Not yet, but the possibility of it. The day he left, I didn't watch him go. I stayed inside, sitting at the kitchen table, running my fingers along the worn edges of the photo album that used to sit on the coffee table when I was little. I hadn't looked at it in years. The silence in the house was suffocating, but it was also necessary. It was the space between breaths. The pause that happens right before something breaks wide open. When I heard the car pull out of the driveway, I didn't move. I didn't even flinch. I didn't have to. His leaving wasn't the end of anything. It had already ended long before today. I could hear the engine fade down the street. The sound of it pulling away was louder than anything I'd felt in weeks. I closed the album and stood up, walking out the front door. The air was different now, still cold but clean. Free. I stood on the porch for a while, watching the trees, the sky, the street. It was as if the world had paused with me. Frozen. No movement. Just the steady rhythm of time slipping forward. I didn't want him to come back. And yet part of me still did. The truth was, I wasn't angry anymore. Or maybe I was, but I had come to understand that the anger wasn't just for him. It was for me too. For letting myself believe in the idea of family that wasn't really there. For holding on to something that had stopped existing when Mom died. I didn't know what home meant anymore. I didn't know what it would take to fix the pieces of me that had broken under the weight of his silence. But I knew one thing. It wasn't going to happen if I kept pretending it was just about him. I heard a car pulling back up, its tires crunching against the gravel. At first, I thought I was imagining it, but the sound grew louder until the engine cut off. I didn't turn around, but I did wait. I could feel him there before I saw him, standing at the bottom of the steps. His voice came first. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "I don't know what else to say. I don't know how to fix everything. I'm not asking for forgiveness. But I'm here, if you want to talk." I didn't turn around. Not yet. I was too afraid to face him. To face myself. I had been angry at him for so long, so consumed by the idea of him abandoning us, abandoning me, that I never stopped to ask what he had been feeling all these years. But now I understood. He hadn't abandoned me. He had abandoned himself. And in doing so, he had pulled away from everyone who had ever truly loved him. From me. From Mom. And maybe that was why we were both here now. Both broken. Both waiting for something that would never come. That perfect, easy resolution we'd imagined would appear. I took a deep breath and turned to him. He was standing there, hands in his pockets, looking smaller than I had ever seen him. He wasn't the man I had known before. He was someone different. Someone who had lived through the wreckage of everything he had lost. "You don't have to fix it," I said, quietly, my voice barely above a whisper. "You can't. None of us can fix the things we broke." He nodded, his eyes soft with regret. "I know." There was a pause. A long silence. But it wasn't empty this time. It was the kind of silence where understanding lives. "I'm not asking for a second chance," he said. "Not in the way you think. But if you're ever ready to talk, to really talk, I'll be here. I'll always be here. I just want you to know that." I didn't say anything at first. The words stuck in my throat. But somehow that was okay. The sky above us had turned dark, the first stars beginning to shimmer in the distance. For a moment, everything felt still. The world, this moment, as if it were holding its breath. "I'll be okay," I said, finally. And I meant it. I didn't know when or how, but I would be okay. Take care of yourself. I added, the words tasting foreign on my tongue. But they were true. He nodded again, his eyes heavy with something I couldn't name. Then, slowly, he turned and walked back to his car. I watched him go, not because I was still attached to him, but because I needed to see him leave. It wasn't the end of everything, but it was the beginning of something. It was the beginning of peace. I stood on the porch for a while after he left, watching the stars grow brighter. A cool wind brushed against my skin, and I let it. I felt its presence like an old friend, like something that had always been here, waiting for me to notice it. The house was quiet now, empty, but it wasn't hollow, and neither was I. I stepped inside, closed the door behind me, and locked it. Not because I was afraid, but because for the first time in a long while, I knew I didn't have to leave anymore.